Today's daf, Bez Hashem, is Masechta Shavuos Daf Yud Daled. Okay, today's daf is Masechta Shavuos Daf Yud Daled. So let's just briefly review. It's pretty simple and straightforward. On Yom Kippur, there are uh, there are two goats that they do a goyrel on, as you can see in the picture. One goes LaShem, one goes LaAzazel. Then also, there's what's not shown here is there's a cow, a par. A par was a cow brought specifically for the kohen. So we had a machlokes yesterday. Yesterday we had a machlokes, and let's just review a very simple machlokes. Machlokes goes like this. Between the machlokes goes like this. So just to review, again, there was a goat, and there were two goats on Yom Kippur. One was sent to the Azazel, right? And one was actually brought as a carbon inside the Beit Kodesh HaKadoshim. So we learned that Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that the one that's sent to Azazel is mechaper on shar averos. Any avera that you did, you get a kapara. But it's not just for Yisrael, but even Kahanim get kapara with the Sa'ir HaMishtaleach. Now, when it comes to the avera of Tumas Migdash Ukudashav, if you made an avera in this category, Tumas Migdash Ukudashav, so then there's a difference. Yisraelim get the kapara with the goat, the other goat of Yom Kippur, that was brought as a carbon. The Kahanim would get the regular family of Kahanim would, hook their wagon onto the par of the Kohen Gadol, of the cow of the Kohen Gadol, and get their kapara. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says there's a separation of classes. Never, the Kahanim always get any kapara that they need. Shar Averis or Tumas Migdash or Kodashav, they get it from the par Kohen Gadol. Yisraelim, they get their kapara from the Seir Yom Kippur. If they get Tumas Migdash or Kodashav, only Yisraelim get that kapara, and Shar Averis is from Shar Mishtaleach. But according to Rab Shimon, Shar Averis, other Averis, Kahanim will get their kapara from the par of the Kohen Gadol. So this here is the machlokes. So let's go back into the Gemara, and it'll all come clear in a moment. Okay, we're beginning over here on your Gimel Amud Beis, about like 8 lines from where the lines become wide. So the Gemara is saying, Man Tana, who is the author? Lahad Tana Rabbanim, that the Rabbanim following Brisa, who will be the author? V'shochat es seir achatos ashala'am. The Torah tells you, let's call it up. The Torah tells you that there's a pasuk that says, the V'shochat esir hachatos ashalam. You can see the pasuk that the kohen shechs the goat that's for the people, and he brings its blood into the behind the curtain and goes into the kodesh hakadashim and sprinkles his blood on towards the kapiris. Achas lamala v'sheva lamata, achas. Remember that, and he does it before the kapiris, and then he sprinkles on the preiches. So asher la'am. The people, that pchatas belongs to the people. She'ein ha'kahanim ischaper by, says the Brisa. Kahanim will not get a kapara with that korban. So uvameh ischaper. Would a regular kohen get his kapara? So the Brisa answers, b'parish shel karan, he'll get his kapara with the cow of Aharon, and that seems to imply not like Rabbi Yehuda, and as the first crack at the author of this Brisa. It'll actually be Rab Shimon who says a regular kohen hooks his wagon onto the cow of the Kohen Gadol. Yochel, I would think, lo yischapru b'parish al Aaron, that the Kahanim should not be able to hook their kapara with the cow of Aharon. Shakvar nema, because the pasuk says by Aharon's kohen ashaloi, that this thing belongs to him. Let's call the pasuk up. The pasuk says v'hikriv es Aaron es parachatos ashaloi. He brings his chatas that's specifically for him, and he brings the kapara on behalf of himself and on behalf of his wife and children. So that's Beisai. So therefore, Ma'ata ein lehem kapara. We're going to say that the Kahanim have no kapara. They can't get the kapara from the Israel's carbon because it says Ashalam. Only the people get the kapara. They can't get their kapara from the Kohen Gadol's kapara Kohen carbon because it says Ashaloi. It belongs specifically to the Kohen. But so maybe the Kahanim don't get kapara. But the pasuk says Yichapar al Kahanim. The Kahanim, every Kohen gets a kapara in Yom Kippur. Matzinu lehen kapara. We find that they do get a kapara. But ma'aheim mischaprim, which will they get their kapara from? From the seir or from the par, seir of the people or the par of the Kohen Gadol? So the Brisa says, Mutiv she's kapra b'para shel Aaron. Let them get their kapara from the cow of Aaron. Sheiruhuta miklale eitzebeised. Because you see that Aaron not only brought about a kapara for himself, but he also brought about a kapara for his wife and children. So therefore, once he's bringing a kapara for his wife and children, he will bring about a kapara for all his brothers who are kahanim. By Soria Anasa Befnim, the goat, there was no exception. It was only for Yisraelim, and that's it. So therefore, the Brisa concludes that the regular Kohen gets his kapara from where? From the par of the Kohen Gadol. The im nafshach, if you want, I can tell you. The pasuk says, "Beis Aaron Baruch Hashem, Beis Levi Baruch Hashem, Yireh Hashem Baruch Hashem." The kahanim are called Beisoi, so it could be when it says the chiper ba'adoi vad Beisoi, as you can see on the screen, it means that the Aaron's power is not only for himself, but also Beisoi means for the rest of the kahanim. So Mantana, who's the author of this brisa? This is the end of the brisa. Amram Yirmiyah said, "The like Rabbi Yehuda." It's not like Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda said. The Rabbi Yehuda, if you go according to Rabbi Yehuda, ha'ama kahanim yesh lehem kapara b'soy mishtaleach. The kahanim do have a kapara by other averis, by the sa'ir hamishtaleyach. So what do you mean? The kahanim would not have a kapara in Yom Kippur? According to Rabbi Yehuda, they will get a kapara on Yom Kippur by other things. Umani. So who must be the author of this brisa? Rava said. Reb Shimon, it's Reb Shimon, the Amma who said, Kahanim ein lehem a kapar b'ksar mishtaleach. He holds the Kahanim don't get a kapar with the Sarya mishtaleach. So therefore, and so if they're not getting a kapar from the Sarya mishtaleach, so if it wasn't for figuring it out, I might think Kahanim do not get any kapara on Yom Kippur. So Kamash Malan, that all the kaparas from all their averas, Tumas Migdash Kedashav and Shar averas, the Kahanim hook their wagon onto the par of the Kohen Gadol, and they get a kapara as well. Abaya says, Afilu Tamer Rabbi Yehuda. You could say that this brisa goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, but the brisa was concerned. I know that Kahanim get their kapara from the Soyer Mashtaleach by Shar Averis. By other Averis, they get their kapara from the Soyer Mashtaleach. But how do I know they get a kapara Patumas Migdash Ukudashav? Ma'ate ein lehem kapara b'tumas migdash kedashav. They can't get a kapara from tumas migdash kedashav because a Yisrael gets his kapara from the soyer hapanimi. The Kohen gets his kapara from the par Kohen Gadol. So maybe they don't get a kapara. The Torah says Kahanim have kapara on any avera that they did. Just like we see on Yom Kippur, they get a kapara from any avera. We go to Yudal Amud Aleph. Betumas Migdash Kedashav. They also have a kapara on Tumas Migdash Kedashav. So now I know a Kahayin is supposed to get his kapara. So who is he supposed to latch on to? So he's latch on to the Seir Pnimi that brought a kapara from Tumas Migdash Kedashav for Yisraelim, right? If you remember, the Tumas Migdash Kedashav for Yisraelim was brought, according to Rabbi Yehuda, was for Yisraelim. This, or Kahanim should be hooked on to the power Kohen Gadol. So this one or this one. So that's what the Bryce is concerned about. So mutav she's chaper power shel Kohen Gadol Aaron shaychut michlole eitzel beisoy, because the power of Kohen of Aaron was brought as an exception, and actually it not only brought about a kapara for Aaron, but it brought about a kapara for his family. There was no exception by soya nas b'fnim, so therefore that goat would not be mechapa on a regular coin. A regular coin will hook his kapara on the cow of the coin of Aaron, which was anyway not just being mechapa on Aaron, but it was also being mechapa on his family. If you have a problem with that, the Torah tells us that the power of the kohen gadol would bring a kapara for beisoy, and beisoy means the family of Aharon, which means his brothers, all other kahanim. Beis Aaron Baruch Hashem, Beis Aaron Baruch Hashem. So the Gemara says, "Ma'im nafshech laima." What would I have? Ma'im nafshech laima. What does that mean? It says only his family. So maybe you say maybe it's only mechaper on his family. So we answer klulin kuruyim beisai. The all kahanim are called beisai, the house of the kohen gadol. Shenema beis Aharon Baruch Hashem, the house of Aharon blesses Eibush. Yir Hashem Baruch Hashem. So beisai, by derivation, means all the other kahanim. So that's all the other kahanim get their kapara from Tumas Migdash Ukadashav on the power of the Kohen Gadol. Albeit, according to Rabbi Yehuda, on Shar Averis, they will get their kapara on the Seir HaMashtaleach, the one that was sent off the mountain. Now the Gemara asks a question. Bahai Asher La'am Lahachi Yudasa. The pasuk says, "V'hikri v'haran asapara chatos Asher La'am." Right? It says, "Asira chatos Asher La'am." He shechs the goat that belonged to the people. So you're saying that it only brought about a kapara for the people. That's what started this whole problem. Is that what it really coming to tell you? Maybe the whole point of that pasuk, it says not that it's exclusively being mechaper on the people, but that the people have to pay for it. It can't be, donated by the rich guy in Klal Yisrael. Every Jew has to participate in the purchase of that sa'ir. So maybe that's what Ashlam teaches you. And says the Gemara, I learned that from another pasuk that says from the congregation of Bnei Yisrael you should get a sa'ir. So I have another pasuk in that. Then you told me by Ashaloi, if pasuk says by a par kohen, that it belongs to him, that it's only mechaper on the kohen. Maybe that's not what the pasuk is saying. I need that pasuk Ashaloi to teach you not that it's only mechaper on the kohen, but that the kohen gadol had to pay for it. He cannot. The tzibur doesn't pay for that par for the cow. So the Brisa says that I might think any kohen could pay for it, maybe because any kohen is getting a kapara with that cow. It doesn't necessarily have to be paid for by the kohen gadol. I might think so. Talmud loyma ashaloi. Only the kohen gadol should pay for it, nobody else. He shouldn't bring it. It may be kosher. Talmud loy mashuv ashaloi kosher shana olav la'akev. The Torah repeated it twice to teach you that no matter what, it's not even kosher b'di'evit. If the kohen gadol did not pay for that cow, the kohen gadol had to pay for the cow. If that's the case, then I need ashaloi to teach you that concept that the kohen gadol has to pay for the cow, but not to exclude that nobody else can get a kapara from that cow. So what was the whole start of the whole problem of where the regular kohens are going to get kapara? They certainly were going to get kapara from that cow. And says the Gemara, no, this is what the Brisa meant to say. Tana hochin kakashle. This was difficult. This is what the Brisa meant to question. Why can't a kohen get kapara with the people? Because they're not paying for that animal. Because only the people paid for that. It really technically came out of machzas shekel, even though the kohen participated in that. But generally, if they didn't have money, they would only collect from Yisraelim to pay for that sa'ir, hanasa b'fnim. So therefore, the kohen, it's obvious he shouldn't get kapara. You didn't pay for it, why should you get a kapara? So they shouldn't get kapara from the Kohen Gadol's par because they're not paying for it. Any Kohen is getting a free ride. And so the Ka'amar, so that's why the Brisa said, Kluyin Kriyim Beisai. That's what the Torah was Bechadish. And that's the idea, the novelty of the Torah was that even though a regular Kohen is not paying for the Aaron's Kohen Gadol, for the Kohen Gadol's par, nevertheless, they can get a kapara. But now the Gemara just cleans up over here before we finish the parak. Rab Shimon, according to Rab Shimon, who said, what did Rab Shimon say? Let's see again. Rab Shimon said that Yisraelim get their kaparas from the Seir Nas B'fnim and the Seir Mishtaleach, and Kahanim get all the kaparas from the par Kohen Gadol. So that's why you really need 3 kaparas over here. Why? Tumas Migdash Kedashav, and then you need not only that, but also for the So'ir HaMusaf, which also you needed was a part of Tumas Migdash Kedashav. So that's what the Gemara is saying. According to Rab Shimon, that's why the pasuk requires by the power of the Kohen Gadol to do 3 things. Trei viduyim, you do vidoy twice on the head of the cow, v'dam hapara, and you sprinkle the blood. These 3 things bring about an atonement for the regular kahanim. One is to bring an atonement to correspond to the Soya Nasa B'fnim, which was Yesh Ba Yediyah B'tchila Ve'ein Ba Yediyah B'soif. One was to correspond to the goat that was brought on the outside, which means that was the carbon musaf, which we discussed earlier in this parak, which Ein Ba Yediyah B'tchila Yesh Ba Yediyah B'soif. And v'chad keneged sar mishalech, and then the Kohanim needed another vidui to correspond to the sar mishalech, which brought about a kapara for shar averis. So corresponding to these 3 things, these karbonos for the Israel, on one par we did 3 acts to bring about atonement for a regular coin. El Rabbi Yehuda. The only thing that a kohen is missing is 2 things, because in Shar Averis he joins up with the rest of Klal Yisrael in the Soya Mishtaleach. That's what, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Kulam B'Soya Mishtaleach. So if that's the case, the kohen is only missing 2 things. So then you should only do 2 things on the regular par with 1 vidui and 1 blood. Eched loy, answers the Gemara, the Kohen had to make 2 vidois. Echad loy, 1 he did for himself, and he didn't have the vidoi have in mind his brothers and the Kahanim. The echad lebeisai, and 1 he had in mind the brothers of the Kahanim, because Kidutani Bei Rabbi Shmuel explained it. This is the way common sense dictates. Mutav Yovai Zakai, we want somebody pure, v'yichapa al chayiv. Somebody who's innocent should be mechaper on somebody who's guilty. While Yovai chayiv, somebody who's guilty, v'yichapa al chayiv should bring atonement for somebody who's guilty. So first we wanted to make sure that Kohen alone got a kapara. So he did his vidui and he's clean. Now he does another vidui to bring about a kapara for the rest of his brothers, the Kahanim. So that's why we have 3 things. 1 was exclusively for the Kohen, 2 for his family, and 3 for his brothers, the Kahanim, the rest of the Kahanim. Hadron Allah Shvuah Shtayim, that ended the first parak. Next parak. Yediyas HaTumah, knowing Tumah, is 4 Averis you could do. Shtayim Shenyambar, it's 2, which leads into 4 Averis. What are the 4 Averis? Nitma v'yada, you became Tameh, and you know you became Tameh. V'nelma memenu, and it's hidden from you, you forgot. Hatuma, you forgot that you became Tameh. V'zachas HaKodesh, but you knew that the food in front of you is Kodesh, is holy meat from a carbon, and you ate it. Then you remembered. Then you chayiv to bring a carbon oil of oil. What happens if you forgot that it's kodesh, but you remembered that you were tamei? Or nelma mimena zeh, and you forgot both. You forgot it's kodesh, and you forgot your tamei. And you ate the kodesh and you didn't know. And then after you ate it, you realized, it was tamei. Oh, this was kachim. That's you bring a carbon oil of yared. That's 2 averos. Now, the Chazal said that even though the Torah only speaks about 2 averos, there's a possibility to do another 2 averos with tumah. Nitma, you became Tama v'yada, and you knew you were Tame. V'nelma memenu tuma, then you forgot you're Tame. V'zachas Hamikdash, but you remembered you're walking into the base of Mikdash. Boom. Nelma memenu Mikdash, or let's say you forgot you're walking in the base of Mikdash, v'zachas atuma, but you remembered you're Tame. You're Tame, you took a stroll, and you just so landed into the base of Mikdash, you think you're taking a walk in some building. Nelma memenu zeh, you forgot both. Tuma and Migdash, Nichnas Migdash, Liyada, and you didn't know, Mishiyatza, when you left the base of Migdash, Yada, you realized, oh, I was Matama the base of Migdash, that's called a carbon oil of So you have 2 plus 2 is 4. Now, it doesn't mean that you walked into the base of Migdash proper. Echad Nisan Azara, whether you walk into the Azara, the Echad Hanichnes Toisefis Azara, even if you went to an expansion, a brand new expansion in the base of Migdash, if they expanded it, you also chayev. But you have to know how expansions took place. When they wanted to expand the base of Migdash, there was a whole protocol. She'ein masifin al ha'ir v'al azaris. You can't expand the city of Jerusalem, all azaris, all the base of Migdash. Ella, you have to get the permission from the Melech, the king, V'novi, the prophet, the Urim the Tumim, the Sanhedrin, Shel Shiva Me'echad, the Sanhedrin of the 71, they have to be part of the process. Uv'shtei toides, and they would walk 2 breads from a carbon toida, Uv'shir, and they would make music. Ubezdin Mahalchan, the Bezdin would walk behind, would walk first, Uv'shtei toides achrein, and then the 2 lechems of the Taida will walk after them, the Chol Yisrael Achreim, and every Jew afterwards. In other words, you can't just expand the base of Mikdash because you have to bring holiness to the new spot. So in order to bring holiness to the new spot, they had a whole procession, which we'll discuss in the Gemara. But once they did this whole procession, kahalacha, then it becomes holy like the base of Mikdash itself. And therefore, if somebody goes in there, betuma, he'll be chayav a carbon oil yara. Hapinim is nechelav chitzayin in the serafis. That has to do with the lechem taida. V'chol shenoi nasis b'chol elif. If you didn't do these things, hanichnas shasham ein chayavim le'al. If you go in there, you're not liable. Says the Mishnah further. Nitba ba'azara. Let's say a guy became tummy in the azara. V'nelma memenu tuma v'zachas hamigdash. He forgot that he was tummy, but he remembered he's in the base of Migdash. Or Nelma Migdash v'zachas tuma. He remembered, he knows he got tummy, but he thinks he's in a museum. Nelma memenu and then he forgot both. But the shear is that he bowed. The shear is he actually prostrated himself, or he waited the amount of time dilly-dallying at the amount of that he could have bowed there, or he walked out slowly the long way. Then you chayav a carbon oil of yared. But let's say he happened to walk out without realizing, he took a shortcut and left. Potter, then he's potter from the carbon oil of yared. If here is a side note from the Mishnah that if Bezdin makes a mistake in psak regarding to do with this mitzvah, Bezdin will not have to bring a par helam davar shel tzibor because she'ein chayavin allowed, because they're not chayav, because since the carbon that's brought for this avera is carbon oil of yared, Bezdin who makes a mistake in psak will not be chayav par helam davar shel tzibor, the special par that if Bezdin makes a mistake in psak. Only if they, let's say, make a mistake in Hilchas Shabbos, or we'll see right now in Hilchas Nida, since the carbon there would be a carbon chatos, there you would have to make a par helam davar shel tzibor. But here it's a funny type of carbon called par oil of yared. So therefore they would be not Bezdin would not have this concept of par helam davar shel tzibor. The Mishnah just gives you an example. What's the possibility that a Bezdin makes a mistake in Hilchas Nida? So the Bezdin told you like this. If Bezdin paskin like this, that if Hoya Mishamishim Torah, man is having relations with his wife, and she says, I'm a Nida now, I feel it. Upirish miyad, and without letting his male organ, die down, he just with the erection he pulled out. And Bezdin said that it's okay. And then Bezdin realized they made a mistake because that's called Boyal Nida, because on the way out, you just have the same Hanoah as the way in. So Chayiv, then Bezdin will be chayiv a par helam shodav zibur. The leaving of the leaving of the woman is a benefit for him, like as if he came into the woman. So therefore, this is a type of mistake that nida. If you do it by mistake, you chayiv a korban chatas. So if Bezdin made an error in psak, they would also have to bring this special thing called par helam davar shel tzibur. Let's go further. Back to the discussion of Tumah. So we said that the Mishnah said that if you're chayev if you ate kachim or you went into the base of Migdash. But now we're learning two opinions that say no. Rav Lezo he says that you only chayev on if you eat kachim by forgetting tumah, but you're not chayev walking into the base of Migdash. That's no oil of the Yorim. And same thing, Rabbi Kiva Oimam, Menel Menu Tame. Al Helam Tumah Chayev, forgetting Tumah and eating Kachim, then you're liable. Veina Chayev Al Helam Migdash. Rabbi Kiva agrees with that. You're not Chayev if you forget and Matama the base of Migdash. Rabbi Shmuel Oimam, Venelam, it says stay pamin twice. Lachayev Al Helam Tumah, if you forget Tumah, Al Helam Migdash, and forgetting the base of Migdash. Forgetting it's the base of Migdash. We're going to see more about that in the Gemara. Amar Papa Labaya. Rav Papa said to Abaya, why do you say that there are four liabilities? Shtaim shein arba, shtaim shein shnei shava. There's two that are six. Why? You count how many times there was their knowledge. Yediyas hatuma, knowing that you were tamei. Tchila, you had to know it first, and then you have to forget your tamei. The soif, and then you remembered. So that's two. Yediyas HaKodesh, you had to know that this was a carbon, tchila, you knew it in the beginning, then you forgot, and then you remember that you ate kachim, the soif, so that's four. Yediyas HaMikdash, same thing, you knew it was the base of Mikdash, five in the beginning, tchila, and then you forgot you were in the base of Mikdash, and then you remembered after you left the base of Mikdash, the soif. So you have 6 times you knew something. So therefore, it's Yediyas HaTumah, should be shtayim shehem sheish, more than that. So the Gemara says, "Taimech, your question is even more stronger. Tamne haver, it's 6 that are 8. Ikit tumas the kodesh for tumas the migdash tchila v'soif. If you break the first one in half, yediyas tumah tchila v'soif means that you knew you were tameh in the beginning, and then you forgot you were tameh, and 2 things you did: either you ate kachim or you went into the base of migdash. So yet you have 8. So the Gemara says, "Holay kasha shein tumah achasi." But the point is that you forgot that you were tamei, so I won't count that as 8. Mikol makam shisave. That really there are 6. And says the Gemara, Amra Papa lo'ilam tamne have. Really there are 8. Abar kamaisa deloy maisa leidei karbim. The first 4 we don't count because you're not chayiv a carbon oil of yared. Only the soif ones you count. So soif, and soif. So then you have shtaim shenarba. Abo kamaisa loy maisa leidei carbon loy kachashiv. Abo basraisa the maisa leidei carbon kachashiv. The 4 yediyas that when you finally realized that you ate, you remembered your tumah, and you remember that you went into the base of English, you remember you ate kachim, so then that's what makes it 4. The iked amar, if you want, I can tell you, Amar Papa loilam tumam nehara. Really, there are 8, but abba kamaisa the lesnai b'cholatar kula kachashiv. The 4 earlier ones that's not in kolatar kula, because in order to bring a carbon, you don't need yediyah b'tchila, because that's only a chiddush by this thing that you had to know first and then you didn't know. By any other aver in the Torah, if you didn't know about mitzvah Shabbos and you mechal Shabbos by mistake, you still chayav a carbon. But here, there are what makes carbon oil v'yared unique is yediyah b'tchila. So we only count the first 4. The ones that are in kol kula, that we don't count. So basically, the Mishnah said 1 more minute and then we'll stop for Shabbos. Boy Rapapa said like this: a guy touched the starets, and he doesn't know if you become tamei or not. Is that called yediyah b'tchila? We said that you have to know you became tamei. But let's say he didn't go to the yeshiva, or he forgot his learning, and he doesn't know, does a sheretz be matama? So the Gemara says, Mahu, what's the case? Hey chadami, he never knew that a sheretz gives you tamei. Sheretz tamei, he doesn't know what brings tamei. We know in shrotzim, as you can see on the screen, there are 8 shrotzim that bring about tuma. These dead rodents bring about tuma. So he thinks he doesn't know which sheretz makes you tamei. Maybe a dead frog makes you tamei. So that can't be, because zil karebe ravhu. Every person who went to yeshiva knows which 8 bring about tuma. So in his subconscious, he knew he was tamei. So that's always he had to know. Answers the Gemara. Let's say we're talking about a case that he knew the concept that a sheretz is matame, and he knows which sheretz could be matame, or could go into nogaba kadasha, but he touched a lentil side of a sheretz. He doesn't know if a lentil could bring tuma or not. Mao, what's the din? Is that called knowing something? Since he knows the concept that a sheretz could bring tuma to a person, that means he knows. Dilma, or maybe since he doesn't know the halacha that even a small size of a dead sheretz, that's the size of a lentil, he doesn't know that could be mitama, imitami loy, mitama halamahi. It's as if he didn't know in the beginning. So he doesn't have a yediyah betchila, so he would not be mechayev a carbon oil of yored. Teku, so the Gemara remains by this question. Okay, so we'll stop over here.
Sure.